Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Tanya Talks. I'm joined tonight by, of course, my co-host, Theresa Simpatico, and we are going to do something very different than what we're normally used to doing here on Tanya Talks together. We came up with the idea that we are going to be talking about quantum creation. It's an area that we are both intrigued with. Thank you. Let me, first of all, welcome, Theresa. Welcome, Theresa.
Thanks for having me, Tanya. I'm so excited to talk about this and to be here like always.
Yes. So we decided that we were going to have this different forum this evening where we were going to discuss a topic that we absolutely know nothing, we know about, but know nothing about at the same time, because it's very intriguing. It's deep.
Complex.
Right. It is complex. Mm-hmm. And we just thought, you know what, it would be kind of a neat idea we're usually talking about it offline and then saying, okay, well, let's kind of go with it online, but this time we're actually raw. Really, we're exploring right? About quantum creation and manifestation and how we interact with our own body, our cells, or all the rest of that. So where do we begin?
Yeah, great question, right? I'm really intrigued by this topic. I'm excited about it too, because just the scientific part of it is intriguing. So when we think about our bodies, right, like what are we made up of, right? And the science, from what I understand and what I read, because I do a lot of reading about this, is like we're energy, we're atoms that are actually shooting together, right?
Yes.
And some scientists say they think it's kinetic energy that's actually keeping us moving, right? Like our bodies and composing them. So I think about that. Wow, okay, so we're a bunch of atoms moving together. So is mostly everything else. So
right.
We're all energy. So when you think about that, that's what I think of quantum physics and quantum creation is about the energetic level of the human person, of humanity, of everything that is around us. And we talk about energy a lot in a lot of the shows. We talk about energy, and that's what I see quantum physics as. I feel like even though we're matter, we are made up of energy. And I think it's really important. I'll go there in a second, actually. I want to talk about something else. And I think I was telling you this offline. Once I read this, and I really wanted to tell people this and read this directly from a Business Insider document that I had read. And I found it. And what it says, and it's really interesting, is 99.99999% of your body is empty space. So we're nothing. And that's really interesting, right? Because I don't know, I feel like something. I'm a person, I am a mother, I am, so many things. So I'm not nothing, but the way we're composed, that's the way it is. And it's because, to make a long story short, and from what I understand, is all these atoms are covered by nuclei, right? And it says, and this is really interesting, if we lost all the dead space inside our atoms, we would each be able to fit into a particle of dust. And the entire human species would fit into the volume of a sugar cube.
It's crazy. 7.5 billion people on the planet, and we'd all fit into a sugar cube.
I think it's really, really interesting. So then it goes on to say, well, then where's the mass come from? The answer is energy, right? And so that's very intriguing to me. Mm-hmm. And the other thing in this article that I found very intriguing that I told you, and I just want to get to it, is it says this. It says, are you sitting down for this? Well, you're not really. I was like, oh, that's interesting. It says your butt isn't actually touching the chair you're sitting on. And that to me is interesting. And it says a little bit of other stuff. And what you're actually feeling is the electromagnetic force of your electrons pushing away their electrons. Mm-hmm. And the same thing when you're touching someone. That's what it is. You're actually pushing against the electrons. But I don't know about that. When I think about that, like when you have a child and you hug your child, all the emotion and the energy that you feel is powerful. When you're in love and you touch someone, you get butterflies. That's energy. So if we are composed of all energy, then don't we have the capability of changing that energy, shifting our energy, bringing ourselves to a place of higher energy. And there's also this chart. It's the Hertz chart of emotions, right? And obviously some of the top ones are love and joy and gratitude. And then some of the other ones at the bottom are like fear or shame or guilt. And I mean, I know for myself that when I'm in the higher energies, which is not all the time, I feel fantastic. And when I'm in the low energies, I don't feel good.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing I want to talk about, and something that I was thinking about that just popped into my head, is, you know, these science experiments where you talk to plants. And to some plants, you're nice and you're kind and you say nice things to, and the other ones, you yell at them and you're mean. And what happens? They die. The energy that you're giving them makes them die. But the plants that you talk to flourish. So that energy that you're giving them is like amazing, because now they're becoming something even better.
Right.
Right. So that's what I mean. We're all energy. And so that's where I want to start with this, and how we can change and shift our energy every day, because that's really important. What do we do? Okay, so we're all energy. Wonderful. But now, how do we get to those higher states of energy?
It's interesting. I'm going to backtrack it to the beginning when you talked about the nothingness.
Mm-hmm.
And depending where you're at in your life, when you hear it, because what I like to do is bring the conversation in terms of real talk, real people, real issues, and how we translate this complex topic into something comprehensible. So when we talk about the emotions and you hear somebody hears, oh, well, we're nothing, when you look at it scientifically, it can be almost draining. But on the flip side, that same nothingness, depending on where you're at in your life, can be exhilarating.
Empowering. It's
Yeah,
empowering.
like, hey,
We'll
like,
go there. I want to go there separately later, I think,
yeah.
because there are some tools that can get you to a nothingness.
Mhm.
If we can talk about that later, I want to come back to that, because I think it's really important.
Yeah.
Yes, because
Because when you
nothingness
said
can
it,
sound like,
all of a
oh my
sudden
God,
I
I'm
felt that.
nothing.
Well, I felt when you said it in the initial part, my first thought is, wow, had you said that, had somebody said that to me 10 years ago, I would have just like, I would have felt like somebody popped a balloon, like popped my balloon, and I just deflated, and it
Right.
would have been it. Where now in my life, you say that and I'm like, woohoo, you know, so I just wanted to add that to anybody listening, you know, if anybody had that feeling where all of a sudden they had a pin popped, you know, that's normal. It just depends on where you're at.
Or you're nothing. Yeah, I totally get that, right? And it's a very interesting concept, because it can be, if you look at it in a positive perspective and what you can do with that nothingness, that's where I think the bonus is, right?
Right.
It's what you can do with that nothingness. Yeah, but even some of this, like a lot of these theories are theories, right? A lot of it is still, they're still trying to prove. And so I think it's just, you know, how we all perceive what we read or hear. And I do a lot of reading about this, and I find that it's still very complex and very it's hard to believe. It's like God, right? Like, do you believe in God? You don't see it, right? So if you can't see it, how do you believe it? It's faith. So it's something that I choose to believe. I think that that's part of it, and part of it is scientific theories, and you know, so they must know something.
Which comes down to energy, because I remember as a child reading, and you know, they had asked, you know, again, you know, from a biblical perspective, in the New Testament, they had asked Jesus who was God, and he said he's a spirit, you know, he's energy. And so it's so complex. And what you know, you and I have been studying this stuff for years, and even with the studying, again, even the greatest scientists of the world, as you say, are still looking to figure it out. And what I work to do is grab the little nuggets out of it and think, okay, well, if I even can comprehend 2 sentences and apply that to my life, I feel like I've won like gold.
Absolutely. Anything that we can take from this, and this is like anything that we can take from any of our talks, from anything we read, books that we read, podcasts we listen to, all these other things. There's so much information coming at us, and it's impossible to take it all. But what are the few things that we could take? And so, you know, what's really important here is, how do we get to those things? Like, how do we get to those higher states of energy, right? We know energy. We know, like, for example, when you walk into a room and you feel lit up and you feel great in that room, you can feel the energy is a good energy. But I mean, I've walked into a room where I'm like, I don't want to be here. And I've cowered, and you can feel the energy of the room, that it's not the energy that you expect or want. And you don't want that energy around you. So I think the first thing is if you talk about that, we've all had people in our lives that can drain our energy or who can be exhilarating and help us to achieve higher levels of our own energy,
Hmm.
right? So let's talk about the first thing, like who we surround ourselves with, right? And we do talk about this a lot anyways. And I think you did a show on It Takes a Village, even like, you need people around you that are going to help you, assist you, help you grow. That's what we do for our children, right?
Hmm.
Ideally, we help them grow as little people and then bigger people, and have them go out into the world and go out with positive characteristics as well. But we try to bring
Absolutely.
their energy up. We try to tell them that don't be afraid.
Hmm.
We try to get them out of those lower states of energy and try to put them up here into happiness and gratitude and looking at things in a different perspective. So,
Absolutely.
surrounding ourselves with people that elevate our energy, I think is really, really important. People stay in toxic relationships, they stay in jobs that they're not happy in. um, they do things. They have friends, for example, that they know they shouldn't be friends with but are still friends with because they've been friends with them for so long. There's so many examples of us surrounding ourselves with people that aren't necessarily good for our energy levels.
I remember, and I agree with you there. One of the challenging things for me, I don't know about you, well, when I started to understand the small little pieces of quantum physics, the metaphysics, energy, the mind, the emotions, when I started to understand that the only way that those people could show up in my reality was because I was housing that energy, it caused me to have to go inwards to really examine what kind of energy I was housing within my soul. What was I really feeling on a deeper level? And we call it subconscious, like we call it all kinds of names.
Unconscious mind, yeah.
What was it that was sitting there? And I was amazed that when I actually allowed myself to stay still, the true feelings that were coming up weren't good ones. And it started to make sense of why I was creating these characters or these events or these circumstances to come into my life because I really wasn't feeling good on the inside on a much deeper level. So I thought subconsciously that I was taking responsibility and taking control
Mm.
over the way I was feeling. But on a much deeper level, when you talk about the atoms and you talk about particles, all those little DNA, all that stuff, the cells were actually sitting in a lower frequency.
Yeah. And so this is really important too, right? I like this, that what you brought up here. Because it's not only the people that surround us, but what's truly inside of us.
Right.
And that is, I really wanted to go there as well, and sort of like, how do you shift that energy? Because what do we live by in our lives? Often the stories we tell ourselves, the stories that other people tell us, um, limiting beliefs, people that told us we weren't good enough, or if they didn't tell us we weren't good enough, they presented things in our lives that made us feel that we weren't good enough.
Right.
And that's really important because those things that come with us bring our energy levels down, right? And have our the whole way. And so what are we really omitting, right? If we are not feeling good inside about ourselves and we have all this past trauma that we've gone through and we haven't healed or start the healing process, yeah, the energy that we're going to emit is going to be a lower frequency energy.
Hmm.
I can tell you, I know this, and I know you know this, that when you start, we talked about this. We didn't talk about this on a physics level or quantum physics level or an energy level, but when you start, healing and going through and starting to understand, who you truly are, what happens? You start bringing in all those positive things that are the right things for you. And not just that that you deserve, that you're deserving, that you are enough, and all of the things that come to you in synchronicities, coincidences, whatever you want to call them, are things because you're attracting those things now.
Right.
The energy is flowing that way. I
Hmm.
know that when I was on a lower frequency of energy, that's all I attracted.
And and you're so right when you're on that. When you said it, what struck me was, as we're talking about it, and you talk about the people around you, and we're talking about creation, not only with the people around us, even with what we believe we deserve or worth in terms of success. Or I'm even going to take it to materialism, because it is us. It's, when we're not acquiring the material things that we'd like, or we're not having the lifestyle that we would like, or, whatever that is. I think it's all encompassing. It's not just about just the people around us. It's the environment around us. It's the way we create and set up our environment for us to have the human experience. And I always call it a human experience because we're all born into an experience. Sometimes we think we don't ask for it, but if you look at it from an energetic perspective, we are just energy traveling through different matter, if you want to call that.
Mm-hmm.
So, all of a sudden you're looking at it, and when they say birds of a feather flock together, all the environment is reflecting back to you. Let's just say, I don't know, you want to dress, you want to find a special dress, and deep down inside, your belief system on a whole other deeper level, your cells, like everything is morphed into a repelling state. It is going to give a disbelief that it's not possible, but you desire it on a conscious level, but everything else is set up.
No.
That what? Sorry?
And everything else is telling you no, though, right?
Absolutely. Well, when you do look at it outside of the feeling, it's like the little cells, everything is set to repel. And all those characters are doing are showing up in your life to say, yes, I'm repelling it. I'm going to prove to you that your cells are right, your DNA is right, everything about you is right. I'm here to set up the repelling.
Yeah, I like that. I like the way you put that. And I think that's important. And so that's part of it. But the other part of it is that we always recognize, we know what is good for us and what's not good for us,
mm-hmm.
regardless of our own state, right? We still
mm-hmm.
know that if we're in a bad job and, or in a toxic relationship, we know that we shouldn't be there.
Mm-hmm.
It's clear. We stay there for different reasons. We stay there because of other, sometimes there's, reasons why we do stay, but, in order to get to a better energy, a higher energy, you can't be surrounded by that. It's just going to bring you down, right? And
so how does one change? So I guess from a scientific perspective, if we took out all the senses, we took out the sense of the actual visual, and we took it down to the end. And this is the conflict. I just want to be very clear with the audience watching. We are in no way, shape, or form suggesting that what we are saying is truth. We are absolutely just exploring quantum physics live here and questioning our own selves. I guess my question is, how do we begin to change that structure scientifically with the atoms and the particles and the DNA within our system? Where did we begin to really start to transform that and not have cells that are set up to repel life, but to attract life?
Great question. Great question. Do I have the answer? No. I have some ideas, and I will share those with you. Yeah. Okay. So, well, let's go there for now. Okay. So let's say that we're nothing and we can become nothing. So if we're nothing, then we can create something, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if we have a blank slate, we can do whatever we want with it. So how do we change that? I'm going to tell you my honest opinion, and the only way to change that is through meditation.
Mm-hmm.
Right? There's other ways to elevate your energy, but if you're talking about an internal way to find yourself, to be your true self, to figure out how to heal, to a whole bunch of things, to actually get to yourself, to be the best version of yourself, you have to go inside,
Mm-hmm.
right? It has to be internal. So what if we were to take that to another level? What if we said, okay, there's no space, no time, no nothing. We are nobody, no one, nowhere. We're absolutely nothing. So we're going to go into a black space, right? And from that space, start creating. It's not easy to get to a blank space. space, right? Because of all the thoughts that come through. But if you let them go, eventually there are gaps in your meditation where you do get to a black space where there is nothingness. And that's where you find your true self and creation, right? So if you can get there through meditation, and that's the only way that I've ever been able to get to that place of darkness, that place where I can start to create beyond space, time, who I am. I'm nobody. I'm nothing. So that's what I'm talking about. I want to talk at the end, but let's talk about it now. So we're nothing.
And
right?
I feel like I feel like, we've got about 40 minutes left of the show. And even that, I'm like, oh, we're out of time already, because it's such a loaded topic.
It is. I have ideas, right? And
Right.
it is a loaded topic, and there's so much to talk about. And it's something that I'm forever reading about because I'm so intrigued by the science behind it and everything else. So let's talk about going to that spot. I mean, if you follow Dr. Joe Dispenza, he's got some great meditations where you can go to this darkness. And, that's where I heard about quantum physics first from Deepak Chopra, and what we're made up of. And I remember I've talked about it before when I went to see him in Toronto at a conference. I was like, wow, I was blown away. But then I went to Arizona and I got to see Dr. Joe Dispenza. And if you follow some of his work and his podcast, this is what he tells you. Like, if you go to the space and you become nobody, like nobody, no one, nothing, nowhere, and you go to this place of darkness, and there you should be able to recreate who you are. But that entails losing the physical body. Like, you're nothing, right? So that to me was a step in creation. When I am in full meditation, which doesn't always happen, when I'm in full meditation, and like I said, for me, it wanes and wanes. Sometimes I'm always meditating, and sometimes I'm not. Sometimes I am and I'm not. But when I am there and I can go and get to these places in a gap, my energy is shifted automatically. I am calmer. I am happier. There's more joy. My energy level already goes up, and I feel like I'm able to create.
Yes.
Because I can get to a place where there's nothing.
And in that, how do you feel coming out of it? Because I'm identifying with what you're saying, because we both do our meditative practices. And I'm identifying because what I've done is a little bit something very similar, slightly different. And I think it's so important for each of you guys watching out there today that you find your own way of meditating, because we've had very clear discussions that everyone is unique and will find your own style. Just try different things out until you find your rhythm. I ended up finding a back in like stretcher. Like, it's just this little thing that stretches your back. And I laid on it, and it was such a relief to my back. And I remember falling asleep with it. It's a weird apparatus. Because I realized when you're creating change, if you're doing things the same way all the time, you know that you're not really creating change. So I decided if my body was always standing in this direction, I needed an inverter to start letting it invert into a different direction.
Oh,
so
I love that.
It was kooky, but it was just intuitive for me. It was like, you know what, Tanya, you're always standing on your feet. We're always sitting, but we're always sitting in this direction. So I wanted my body to now go in the opposite direction. With that said, I started to practice, and then I found this back inverter thing. So I would lay on it, and as I laid on it, and you talk about this nothingness, and you go into the state of nothingness. I've been there, where you let go of everything. But it didn't happen right away, but it was like repetitive practice of going into this state, putting my body there. And then one day my body said to me, let go of it all. Forget being a mom, forget being this. It was this sigh of relief of being in nothingness. It was like, for once in my life, I could be nothing.
You lose your identity.
Absolutely. It was great.
Yeah. So so it's like, I am Theresa, right? And then you take away the Theresa, and it's just, I am. I am.
Space. I felt nothing except nothing. It was all black. Like, everything was just black. And I remember thinking somewhere in there, I thought to myself, and I remember it so clearly, it was like, well, what do you want? And this like little voice said, what do you want? And as I said that, this gush of imagery of what I wanted became very clear. And as that imagery became very clear, I took myself there as if it was already a reality. And when I woke up, my entire environment was very unfamiliar.
Yes. And that's the quantum realm that we can talk about. And you know, it's really interesting because if, you know, people are listening and they're like, yeah, like I get it, you know, because I was also a skeptic. Trust me, I'm a skeptic when it comes to certain things, to many things. But I get that. But you're right. That's exactly how you feel. You feel it's unfamiliar, but it's the practice of repetitive meditation. It's not you do it once and everything changes,
No.
right?
But I will say that I never went back fully to the old reality. Something about your body actually starts, it does like a
Shifts.
work, right. I never, to this day, I've never fully gone back to that old reality. It's actually propelled me with the repetitiveness. It's now, and I can say that things have shown up in my life where I'm like, and I know we've shared offline, like things that have shown up in my life. And I'm like, you know, I'm like, is this for real? Like, is this, you know,
Pinch yourself. Like,
yes, because
yeah.
I will tell you that my belief system, which is encoded like hereditary down the line, is it's a hoax. It doesn't happen for me. We want it to happen, but the truth is the core belief was set for it not to happen. So all of a sudden you go into this, as you call it, the void, the black space, the nothingness. You go into this place and then you come out and you're like, wow, what you close your eyes to and what you're now opening it in a matter of 20 minutes doesn't look familiar. It's a crazy feeling.
Well, let me ask you something too, right? And I know I've talked about this before.
Yeah.
Not sure which show it was, but one of them or a few of them. But like when we think about our lives, right? Let's think about our everyday life. Like we get up in the morning, right? You are planned and set in stone from the minute you get up.
Mm-hmm.
So where is there space for creation? Like, how is it that, okay, so if you get up and, you know, if this is you in the middle, then you have all these things that you've already planned in your life. And not just that, the things that you're thinking about, the fight that you had last night with somebody, maybe your partner, your friend, I don't know. And you're like shooting at a million miles an hour, right? What's next? I got to do this. I got to do that. And, you know, our lives are really hectic. And my life is like yours, very hectic. And a lot of people are like that. So where's the time to become and lose everything that we are so that we have time to create new realities?
Right.
And go to this quantum field, right? It exists because I know I've been there. I've been there during meditation. I've been able to create. You know, it's like, you know, you need something to happen and there it appears after the meditation, after the creation. You know, how am I going to do this? And I'll be honest, this same thing happened for our talk tonight because I was like, this is a very complex topic. It's not only complex, I'm not a physicist by any means. I read a lot. I've read a lot about quantum physics and quantum mechanics and the quantum field, and I've listened to people. And so for me, I have a level of understanding, but not totally. And so I had to go to a dark space to say, where do I want to take where do we talk about this? Like, I know we've talked about it offline, I mean, but when we're talking in front of a live audience, what do you want to say to them to make them understand? So I had to go, and that's what prepared me for our show today, because I wasn't sure in which direction, you know, we should go.
We don't know. We have no idea. We're creating in this process of
Right. But I actually did create it before we sat down. And that's the reality, because I sat and I wanted to really, really, you know, do this topic some justice, you know. And like you said, we don't really know about this stuff because we're not physicists, we're not scientists.
But yes, anyways, we've been studying it for so long because, you know, for multiple reasons, not just one, you know, to heal ourselves, to create a new reality, just the all-encompassing spiritual component, the all-encompassing aspect of it. And it has brought us to a space where we get introduced, you know, anybody that's watched the movie What the Bleep, you know,
yes,
Oh, anybody that's watched the movie Emotion, you know, I think Gaia's got it on their platform, the former FMTV, the Food Matters Network. So it's a very I think that there are so many individuals out there like us that are looking to understand it deeper so that we can bring it in a comprehensible everyday language, layman terms language. And I feel that we're doing a good job as a community that's working towards it. And I don't think that we're ever truly, I've reconciled, like, you know, when they talk about the mystery of God, I think that there are just some things that we're never going to be able to explain.
Right. Like consciousness, right?
We're just going to have to experience it. We're going to have to allow ourselves to enjoy the experience of it and marvel at the wonders of whatever we are defining quantum physics to be.
Right. So, you know, so we've talked about the meditation, and I think it's really important. If you can find a way to meditate, it doesn't have to be, it could just be deep breathing. It could be, you know, painting, whatever suits you. And something that you would like to do, because if you don't feel comfortable in it or you're not enjoying it as much, then, you know, it's not right for you and you won't do it. It's that simple. So I
Mhm.
would say find something for you. But, you know, to get there, when you're sitting in meditation, it's okay to have all those thoughts that come to you. It's just what you need to do is allow them to go away. Just gently let them float away like a cloud, you know, like they're passing by, like the cars on a road, like, you know, and that's what's really important. And try to get to a space of blackness. You're not going to be there for long, but there are little gaps.
Mhm.
That's the space of creation. That's the space where you have other ideas that come to you.
Right. And I'm going to say it from the place of maybe this will help somebody let go. I'm not sure. It's there, everybody has a different entry point. Everybody's got a different way. But it's the idea that if there's a motivation that can be behind it, let the motivation be. It's like cleaning out your closet or making space. The only way that we're going to be able to create is by letting go, by going into that space of nothingness. So all of a sudden, it's like, wait a second, I get to have whatever that what's motivating you for your desire. It's like, in order for me to do that, acquire that, whether it's a relationship, a job, you know, a lifestyle, or to restore your health, because there's a lot, you know, people want to restore their health. So whatever that is for you, if whatever that motivation is driving you, you have to create space. So go into that nothingness, because that nothingness is actually going to give you what you want. And I
Yeah.
know for me, it's an incentive for me to be like, okay, I let it go.
Yeah. Well, what happens when you let things go, right? Part of what, you know, energy, and when we were talking about feelings and emotions, like we're supposed to feel those things. We're humans. We're going to
Mhm.
lose people. We're going to be depressed at certain times. We're going to be unhappy. We're going to be in situations we don't want to be in. Those are going to cause us to be in lower level emotions and
Right.
energies. And it's okay. But it's how long you sit there. And that's part of the problem. Is I know that a long time ago, in another life, no, in this life, but in this life, I would sit there forever. I would have an argument with somebody and it would be there forever. Like it just didn't go. Like it wasn't you know how people say you hold grudges. It wasn't grudges. It just made me feel really bad inside constantly, and I couldn't stop thinking about it. So now something happens, and I sit there and I remember about love and letting it go with love, and it's okay. You know, I felt it. It's not a good place I want. It's not a place I want to be in, and I'm okay to let it go now. It's how long we sit in those lower level energies, right?
Mhm.
I think that's important. Um, but so meditation, I think, is really important because we don't have other time to create. We
Mhm.
really don't. And our lives are so hectic and there's so many things coming at us all the time. When else? So you want to talk about creation? That's the most important thing for me, is to
Mhm.
find a space where you can let go of space and time,
Mhm.
right? And you can sit in that nothingness to create
And not
other stuff.
everybody's a writer, so I get it. I will say though that even if you're not a big writer, the minute you come out of that void, if you are in a position to write even 5 sentences of where you put yourself after you came out of that void, when we talk about science and senses and physics and reinforcing and reprogramming, shifting the emotion and signals to the brain and chemicals. Something about that writing almost makes it concrete
Yeah.
and it solidifies it. I'm going to say with absolute, just because offline I had shared with Theresa a situation that had happened in my life. I had gone into this void. I wrote it out, and 2 weeks later, on my lap, something appeared on my lap. And somebody gave me something, and they gave it to me, and I was like, "Oh my gosh!" Like I went into this exact moment 2 weeks ago. So my body just all of a sudden became that moment, that reality, and it had to show up. And I thought at first it was hokey pokey, and I tried it with a few other things in my life. And I'm like, no, this really works. So why aren't we spending time every day?
Because it's really hokey pokey, right? And that's what people think. And it's like frou-frou, and it's not really real. But if we're all energy, right? We can shift those energies and we can create. If it's true, and that's what they say. I mean, I'm not a scientist, but that's what the scientists say, that we're all made up of energy, right? Then we should be able to shift that energy at any point. We can decide how we want to feel. I truly think we have that power, but we don't feel like we have that power because of everything that we've been through in our lives. But I believe we have that power. And some of the things besides meditation, I mean, what else can we do to, bring ourselves to a higher energy level? Well, what about laughter? Watching a comedy, forget the horror movies, and whoever's a horror fan, forget it. Put on a comedy, laugh. It brings your energy up. Laughter, joy. That's a thing that you can do. And exercise. Exercise is a real one. And I know it's hard to get into our schedules, but even a nice brisk walk. I always feel really empowered after. I feel like really good about what I just, I feel great after, I've done a little bit of exercise. So those are a couple of other things that you can do besides meditation to bring up your energy level, right? And, what's part of the thing, and we had to touch on this, but how do we shift the energy? Like if we can just, I'm gonna ask everyone right now to do something. Let's all close our eyes for just a moment, okay? Let's just close our eyes. Let's take a deep breath. So now I want everyone to really think about something here. I want you to think about if you could be anyone, do anything, be anywhere. Okay, listen to your heart's desires. Say there was no limits. Okay, let's take one more deep breath. What is it that it tells you? What's the first thing that comes to your mind? If there was no limits, nothing, what comes to your mind? What is it that you want? You can all open your eyes, but that's tapping into yourself, taking a quiet moment, forgetting about who you are, and saying to yourself, what is it that I really want? Not what everybody else wants for me, not what everybody else tells me I should do. What is it that you really want? Often we tell our kids, like, pick something that you're going to be happy doing. Some of us tell them to pick something to make money, but I don't. I always say, pick something you're going to be happy to doing, because you're going to make money doing it if you're happy, right?
Absolutely.
So, I mean, and I truly believe that. But what's in that heart? What is it that you truly desire? If you could let go of all the limiting beliefs, all the stories that people tell you, all the stories we tell ourselves, if we focus on what we want, that brings up our energy because we're happy about it. We're excited. It lights you up. What lights you up? Like, what do you feel really great about? Right? I think that's so powerful. But we let go of that because no, we can't do that. It's too hard. They told me it's too hard. They told me I'm not capable. So no, we're gonna say no, right? But if you could just push that away, push back, use those electrons or whatever and push them away, right? And what is it that you really like? What is it that you really want? And I think that if you can go to that space and focus on that, that will elevate you as a person. It'll elevate your energy. It'll make you feel better.
Right.
Right. So I think that's really important. What lights you up inside? Where's that spark?
Right.
Where's that spark inside of you? if we really believe it, and religiously and every other way, we're here for a purpose. What
Mm-hmm.
is your purpose? What is
Mm-hmm.
it that you really, really, really want? What do you want to
Mm-hmm.
do? You know, it took me a
I
long time. Go ahead.
no, go ahead. Took you a long time to.
It took me a long time to get to a place to understand what I really want,
Yes.
a long time. And I instill that in our kids, like, what does he really want? Like,
Mm-hmm.
because, or what is your purpose? What do you want to do? Right.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really important that we understand who we truly are so that we can be who we truly are.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I agree. Absolutely. So true. It's resonating with me and processing that.
Right.
I want to touch upon this part of quantum physics, and it's been a very it's it's a controversial topic because it falls in the line where people talk about manipulation and this, that, and everything else. And I want to know that in my experience of studying quantum physics creation, even in this moment, that we're having this conversation, we've created this reality in this moment. And a lot of times, even with our children, so let's talk about it closest to us because it's easy to talk about it with people that aren't close to us. But when people are close to us and we're not having good experiences with them, we've created that reality. We're contributors to that reality. So how do we change that reality? We go into that nothingness, and you said it right there, which is, what do we want? It's a lot of work to find out what we really want. And I know personally, being a coach and everything else, and working with individuals, it's really challenging for human beings to go there and allow themselves to feel what they want with their children, that experience that they want with their children, because then they feel like they're manipulating their children. But it's not about manipulating the outside world. It's about changing the inside world to know that you're worth having a good relationship with your spouse, or you're worth having a good relationship with your child, or with a friend, or in a work to have. It's the relationship you're having with yourself. And once you can allow yourself to experience that within, in that void, in that space, you can go into that reality where you can have that real experience of having that harmonious relationship with your children, with your spouse, in the work environment, whatever that is. Then it has to show up in your reality. It has to resolve itself. I think his name was Bernie Siegel, had said in the book, Love Your Disease, It's Keeping You Healthy. He had said, when a child has a disease, it's serving the parent on some level. And if the child is young and the parent resolves that internal emotion, the disease has to leave the child. If the parent doesn't resolve it and the child gets older, then it's up to the child to resolve
Interesting.
it. Isn't it? It's fascinating
Well,
because
that to me is an energy flow, right?
of
Like,
course.
if you're, like we talked about the plants, right? If you're saying things or exuding a certain kind of energy, like, what about the people around you, right?
Right.
So what's the cliche saying? Where your attention goes, your energy flows, or where your energy
Right.
flows, your attention, whatever I think it's where your attention goes, your energy flows. If you're going to put your attention on something, we choose where we put our attention, don't we? Nobody
Mm-hmm.
forces us to dwell on the fight that we had with our partner or husband or wife or friend
Right.
or child. And we choose that and
Right.
we sit there. So, what if we took that and said, okay, I'm choosing to stop that?
Mm-hmm.
It's my choice. How can I change that situation? How can I elevate the energy of that situation?
And truly do it from a cellular level where you're
Yeah.
changing, because just because that spouse you're fighting, you have to realize your cells are made to repel in that state. It's to interact in that state. So you're actually not only doing it with your spouse or your child, we have fights with our children. We're also doing it with other characters in our life, because that is the way that our we're structured. So we have to actually alter that structure, which is what you're talking about, going into that meditative void and putting yourself in a different reality to change that structure that causes you to transform the energy, that you change that experience in reality with everybody on a whole new
Yeah.
level.
Yeah. But
Some
remember,
people don't understand how it works, but that's okay.
That's okay. But I know that I know because I'm very intentional in the things that I do.
Right.
Very intentional now where I wasn't before.
Right.
Um, so I know that my energy levels were a lot lower before. But like I said, I don't dwell on yeah.
Right.
But I don't sit and dwell on negative experiences anymore. I sit there. It's not that I don't sit there because it's very important to process that information as well. And why are we there?
Right.
Right? Why are we there? And what do we do to change that situation? Because we have that power. I know because I've done it. And so, you know, not to get too personal, but having an argument with, it's very short lived. I mean, arguments before used to be weeks, months.
Oh, years.
Years.
At least.
Yeah. But it's not, people say, oh, life is too short, so there's no point. But that's not the way I see it. That's not the reason. The reason for me was that I know that I'm very intentional now, and I know I can change those things. Whereas I didn't think I could change them before.
But isn't it empowering that you have this knowledge that you can understand that you can now reshape your reality and you understand it's just energy, it's not personal. Like, it's a beautiful thing. And I can bear witness. I've known Theresa for years. So, and I'm sure you can bear witness in my own life that we together.
Yes.
I just want to say this, Angel Wings is writing in. I heard someone the other day say that if you take that option off the table, whatever the option is, then it's no longer an option to choose from.
I love that. I love that
Thank you
because that's interesting, right? It's the same thing. If it's not there and you say that that's not an option, then it's not an option. You're going to go to the other option, right? It's just, I like that. It's very, very similar to what we're talking about.
Right. Right.
I think that makes total sense.
Right. So now let's take it to a physical, because, I always believe that your body receives full restoration when you deal with it, mind, body, spirit. So now Theresa, what you're suggesting is that we change the emotion, we change the thought. Now we're going to the physical, because we have to realize that when we keep that negative energy, that lower vibration, that lower frequency, we're distorting ourselves and we're weakening our immune system. We're making the acidity level in our bodies, really high. We're not in an alkaline state. So when we start to say we love ourselves, really truly ask yourself, how are you loving yourself? What are you loving? If we took out emotion, we took that, what are we doing to ourselves? How are our cells existing? Is it really in a healthy state?
Affirmations, right? We talk about this. Like, so how do you get there, right? Because if you have all these pre-existing negative beliefs about yourself, how do you get there? If you keep telling someone they're stupid, eventually they're going to think you're stupid. But if you keep saying, I love myself, I'm beautiful, I'm smart, and you keep telling yourself those things, well, eventually you are going to believe those things too, right? And everything takes time, right? So it's not like things happen overnight. It takes time to get to those places, but they're achievable. I know they are because I've been there. So I want to talk about something else because it's really important that you understand that you control the energy inside of you. You control it.
Yes.
Nobody else controls it. You do. So if you're getting angry, they don't feel your anger, and
or even if they do, it's really more affecting you. The energy that you're feeling is more intensified.
Yes. But say you're angry at someone not within your jurisdiction, right? Or like in your vicinity, right? They don't feel your anger. They don't. If you're mad about something and it's all balled up inside of you and you're like, oh, I'm so mad about this, but you're mad. It doesn't affect their lives in any way.
Yes.
In no way, shape, or form. It may affect the people that are in your surrounding, because obviously if you're feeling low, they're going to feel your lowness and the low energy, and they will also capture that. Yes. But, often we do this. We have, we're mad about something that happened and we live with it. But that anger just sits inside of us, and it's not a good place to be, especially on the scale of emotions. It's one of the lowest things to be at is anger, right? Anger, shame, guilt, fear, all of those. So we really, truly have the power to control our energy and our options.
So what options are we leaving on the table? Angel wings.
Right. So many of them. My goodness. No. Um, yeah. I want to just say that, in all of this, the most important thing is that find, like for me, I think it's really important to find things in your life that are meaningful, that make you happy. I'm not talking about people because people don't generally make you happy. It's the things that are inside of you that you want to do, accomplish,
Mhm,
serving your purpose. It's really important that you find those things, right?
mhm.
And stick with them and focus. And if you can get into a meditation practice, and some of the like people, the richest people in the world, the like all kinds of different people that, like they meditate and they have a
Mhm.
meditation practice. And not that I'm saying that I want to be rich and that's not, a goal that I have, but okay, well maybe. No, I'm kidding. But
I do, and I'm okay with that.
yeah. But what I'm saying is like there's so many people that have meditation practices, influential people that have meditation practices, and a lot of people, just regular people that have meditation practices. I know that I'm a regular person and I have a meditation practice. And I can tell you when I'm meditating, I'm at my best version of myself and
Mhm,
I'm in creation. And I have
mhm,
created so many things and manifested so many things in those times,
mhm,
and way more than when I'm constant go, go, go and hectic and have no time for the creation. So I think it's
mhm,
really important that we leave everyone, we have a few more minutes, but that we leave everyone really taking the time for themselves as
mhm.
maybe part of a self-care practice to, get to
Yes,
that point where you
good
can
idea.
make that time for yourself. Because if you don't, you are just living your past life every single day, right? So we're taking what happened yesterday, and you're getting up in the morning and you're like a robot, right? And it's okay, I'm going to do all these things. So we really need to take that time for ourselves. And
I like the way that you put it a few sentences ago, like, self-care practice.
yeah,
It really, I believe that you are absolutely correct, that it should be incorporated. We do self-care practices like facials and, other outwardly stuff. I think that on the hierarchy of it, I feel that you are correct that it should be meditative practices should be incorporated as a self-care practice.
Tanya, you don't even have to pay for it. I
I
mean,
know.
it's one of those things. Number one, if you want meditations, you will find thousands of them online. So if you want a guided meditation, if you want a breathing technique meditation, if you want to learn how to meditate, if like there's so many resources and they're free. And that's the best part of it. A lot of self-care, like people think that they have to, go to a conference. Okay, I've done some of those things too, like, so that I can better myself. But where best to better yourself than within yourself? Where
Mhm.
best to, start really delving deep into yourself
I've
within
been saying
yourself.
this every single episode. I find myself saying the most unselfish thing that anybody could ever do is to learn how to receive. And the meditative practices really opens us up on a whole other level to receiving.
Yeah.
And the most loving thing that one can do for themselves is to learn how to deep breathe, meditate, open yourself up, and really take this as you say, as a self-care practice.
Yeah. And like I said, there's so much information and so many things you can do. I mean, what's the
Right.
worst? Like, and if you don't want to take our word for it, what's the worst that can happen? That you rest for 5 or 10 minutes every day and that you
Right.
take a break from everything. I mean, that can't be bad for you. But
Right.
what if during that time you can become nothing and you can create? What if? Like, so take the what if and try it. I would say try it. I mean, there's no harm in doing it. It's
Hmm.
truly a self-care practice. It's truly a wonderful thing to start. And I'm not saying like I haven't totally been committed to it since I started. I haven't. And like
Hmm.
I said, I've weaned and waned, but my best times and when I'm doing my best is when I have a meditative practice and
Right.
I create the best things when I have a meditation practice and I'm
Yes.
calmer and I am in an elevated energy state,
Hmm.
which is even more important.
Hmm. It's a
So,
beautiful thing. I know it, to the point that, I'm like you, right? I'm not going to say that I necessarily do it every day. For the most part, I do. I'll admit that. I do have days where I fall off. but it's breathing for me at this stage. And I'm going to tell you, for anybody that's like, okay, good for you, I couldn't sit still for 30 seconds. I'd be fidgeting, I'd be falling over, I couldn't focus. This was hocus pocus, this was BS. Who are we really kidding? Like, I was on the complete opposite end of the spectrum. And I know we say it all the time, if I can do it, anybody can do it. And I'm not going to even say that. What I'm going to say is that my life was, there was a point in my life where it was just, I had nothing else to give a shot but to go back to it and say, okay, I was curious. It was more of a desperate curious than anything else. And it was, I wanted what I wanted. Nothing else was working in my life. All right, here we go. You know, so it's that desperate curious. So anybody listening, sometimes it takes a desperate curious to just get rock bottom. You got nothing else to lose at that point.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
so I had everything to gain at that point. If it worked, if it didn't, everything else was failing anyways.
And like I said, what's the worst? You're getting a 10-minute break in a day. Like, and everybody could use a 10-minute break.
Well, I promise whoever it is,
Yes, 5 minutes.
I've not gotten anybody's life, but you stick to that practice just out of curiosity, like you said, even if it's 10 minutes a day, what's the best thing that's going to happen?
5
The best thing
minutes,
is
3 minutes.
Your body's still going to be still enough. Our bodies are so intelligent that unconsciously, whether you think something's happening or not, something's happening. And the universe will start to show you evidence that, oh, like little things will start to happen.
But Tanya, there's even an effect on your blood pressure, your heart rate, like everything. It's actually good for you. It's a proven fact. So there's a scientific methodology behind it.
As we're talking about the quantity.
Right.
And with that, but even with that said, as you're saying, your blood pressure lowers. We don't even realize with that state, it's actually still opening us up to receiving abundance and goodness and health. Everything's coming in. So it is doing something.
Absolutely.
We're just not connected to it. That's all.
Right. Exactly. But it's a great place to start. I don't know how you want to end off here, but I just want people to remember, where your energy goes, your energy flows. Your attention goes somewhere, that's where your energy is going to go. Try to find the things that elevate you, that light you up, that fill your spark inside. That's what I want everyone to take away today, right?
Yes.
That's really important.
Well, we're going to leave it like that. I'm not adding to that.
That's what's really, really important. If you can get there, you're going to be happier. It's just a known fact. If you're in that space, you're going to be happier.
Right. Yes.
And your energy will be elevated. So.
Absolutely. So thank you for, this is the second conversation we've had in the last couple of weeks where we just kind of wung it in terms of, it changed direction from where we originally thought it would be cool to speak from. We were talking on gratitude the last time, and it totally, a couple hours before we went on, it shifted direction, and it shifted direction here as well. So I appreciate how things are, we ourselves are allowing the process to show up organically. And I really appreciate you for that, allowing that freedom and that creativity to flow through us through these conversations. So thank you everybody for joining us this evening. Thank you, Theresa, as always, for a beautiful conversation.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me again. We should do another talk on this. I'm really passionate and excited about it.
We are going to do another talk.
Yeah, I'm really I really love this. And I think we can really talk about a lot more. And I think we've just touched the surface.
Well, I told you we had 40 minutes left and we still haven't even, I was being very, I knew it because I know it. I'm just going to give the audience just a little heads up that Theresa will be talking to us about the power of words coming up next month in April. She'll also be talking to us about detachment as well, which will be another wonderful conversation. So we've got a lot of topics lined up for you guys in the next couple of months that we're looking forward to having that conversation with you guys. I like and subscribe Tanya Talks 4. Also visit thetanyaexperience.com as well. I'd like to work with you one-on-one. It's your life, your story, and it's your life experiences. And I want to help you show up and live your best and most authentic life. Visit thetanyaexperience.com to get started. Theresa, I love you. I love you guys all for listening in. Thank you for tuning in and watching Tanya Talks. Have a good evening, everyone. Good night.
Good night.